Hey guys, we're here for another Whale Club hangout. This is a special event. We're very proud to have Tony. He's been a professional capper in sports betting for 4 years now. I'm sure a lot of the degenerate gamblers that have been trading, maybe during the downtime have been interested in sports. So we're very proud to have Tony here. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you guys for having me.
All right, so maybe some people just want to kind of know, like, how did you get started in sports betting, and what made it be just kind of a hobby to turning into something you got really serious into?
Well, started at 15 years old. The back over here in the U.S. they have the cards. You got to pick at least three teams, and it's a minimum $2 picks. You go to the different Italian clubs that they have, or various hangout spots, Irish, Celtic hangouts, whatever it is. So you start out with that. Your parents hand you a card, say, "Hey, here's $3 this week. Pick three teams. If you hit, maybe make 17 bucks or 20 bucks, something like that, and that's how you get your interest in it."
All right, do you think that somebody actually has to have an interest in sports to be a sports bettor?
Well, you have to be able to watch the games consistently and to be able to analyze them. I would assume, yeah, you'd have to. I mean, there's a lot of guys who do numbers, and I check them out and I look and see how they do. They do okay. They could probably eke it out. But if you're not watching the games consistently every night, breaking down the games, figuring out the biggest advantages and disadvantages of each individual player, you're not really going to be able to have a good, fair shot at it.
Got it. Yeah, I thought that was kind of an obvious question, but
Hmm.
I thought there might be some debate on that matter.
Yeah.
And let's back up a little bit here to some of your early capper days and just kind of
Hmm.
what's brought you here today. Can you
Hmm.
tell us about some of the, successes, like big wins, as well as, those scars of big losses as well that you've experienced on the way, and what you've
Mm.
learned from them as well?
Well, the most important thing you can learn from your early days is money management. If you don't control your bankroll, you're going to get the doors blown off early and often. You got to know exactly how much you can afford to risk, what your end game is going to be, how much is going to get you back. If you don't have a clear mindset, numbers wise, of what you're able to risk, and you go over it, then then you're going to be in trouble. But when I first started, I guess I was losing those parlay cards. Start off at $5, then you start get to 20, then you get to 100. Then you start having a little bit of success. You hit say four teams. It was probably four teams and $100, so you're getting about 405 back off $100 pick. So that was nice early wins. I had if on the parlay cards they had if you get 9 out of 10, you'd get the same amount as if you got six teams right. So I would do each week. I'd do a three-teamer, a six-teamer, then a 10-teamer. God forbid you hit the 10-teamer, then your $100 bet or even a $20 bet's going to get you about 2,600 bucks back at least, I'd say.
Do you
So.
do you think you're really hitting the core of everybody that has experienced that gambling high? And
Mhm.
I'm no shame in saying that I'm a degenerate gambler myself, but I think those parlays that you're alluding to kind of is the gateway drug for a lot of people. This seems innocent, right? Just $5, and you can win 10, 20x. But as you say, next thing you know, you're betting 25 on them, 100 on them, and you've gone full degenerate at that point.
Well, it's only degenerate if you consistently lose. If you're consistently making a pretty penny, then then you got a surplus of cash. But yeah, absolutely. If you start I tell you, it really is a gateway drug. If you start winning, like I did at the beginning, you have three teamers, and then you start moving into five teamers, and then you're looking at the back of the card, and you're saying, wow, if I could pick 9 out of 10 or six of them right, or if I get, God forbid, I get lucky one day, and I do a couple of Hail Marys, I get all 10, and I can take $20 and turn it into 24 or 2,600 bucks. I mean, what kid 15, 17 years old is going to say, well, of course, it's definitely an intriguing start and an adventure when you're first getting started.
Yeah, I think there's a quote out of Casino that says something like, the most dangerous thing to the gambler is a gambler that wins. Like that starts you down that path. So let's focus a little bit more on what you do specifically in your strategies. So take us through the sports that you think or that you focus on the most, and kind of the strategies around that.
All right. My favorite two have been basketball and football. NFL-wise, the first thing I do each week is who's going to win? Who's going to win the game? Start off nice and simple. Then we add in the numbers to it. Okay, so say New England's favored by 10 this week. What have they done previously against this team? But I keep it to a very narrow scope. A lot of people say, well, 15 years ago they're 10-5 all time against this team. That has nothing to do with it. Completely different players, completely different systems, coaches, everything's completely different. So that's how I start off. I look and see who's going to most likely win the game. Then you start adding in the factor of the numbers in. A lot of guys, mathematicians, they only look at numbers wise. For me, I played basketball and I played baseball. If you have to have a feel for the sport. If you don't have a feel for the sport, you're not really going to stand a chance. Just like in basketball now. Last year, they were playing back-to-back-to-back games. They were playing 3 games in a row, probably once every week and a half. On that third game, if they're on a road trip and they've gone against a couple of good decent 500 teams even, they're going to be exhausted by the third game. This year, they've decided to change that, and they've only really gone to back-to-back games and going back to 2 travel days or a travel day in between now. So it makes it a lot harder because when you can look at the schedule and see that a team is playing, say, 3 or 4 times in a week, likelihood is on that third game they're going to be a little tired from travel and say they got to go from Boston to New York to Philly. By the time they reach Philly, well, they're going out at night. They got lives as well. They're not machines. They're human beings. So you got to put yourself in their shoes at some point as well. Be like, hey, they just played an overtime in the second game, and then they got to play another game tomorrow. Are they going to limit the minutes? Are they going to change anything coaching-wise? Do they have different strategies? So there's a lot of different things that go into it. NFL, I would say, well, for me this year, was definitely my best sport. It was I had one losing week. I think it was week 7. I went 4-7. So that was my losing week. Everything else was either first 3 weeks I was like 11-1, then it went to 10-3. So the beginning of the seasons typically is the easier part of the schedules. Once you start getting into the middle, it's just like baseball, the dog days of summer, then you got to use a little more strategy. And you have to do your research every single night. First thing you do, if you're going to be a capper, if you're going to be picking these games, you got to wake up in the morning, get your water, get your coffee ready, look down at the injury list, see what that is, and go from there. So that would be for each sport. There's different strategy. In basketball, matchups are the most important thing. You got to look at all 5 matchups on a court, and then compare benches. Who's got the best bench? Who's got the best coach? Do these players even like playing for this coach? There's a lot of different things that go into mine.
I noticed you kind of brought up some like metadata related stuff of, are they traveling, are they tired,
Hmm.
as well as, what their bench looks like. Do you have any, specific resources that you could recommend, after I get my coffee in the morning and I'm going to
Hmm.
sit down, the internet's a giant place.
Hmm.
Where should I start? Is there some favorite sites you have or something like that?
Yeah, Roto World. I have the apps. I use them consistently. They are up to the date. The best thing about Roto World is they take all the information from all the different websites and they put it onto one. So whether it's a independent beat writer or the team puts it, it's all put together on Roto World. So I would say that's the most important one to have. You got to have all the information. You don't want to be going around and spending 5 hours looking at 10 different websites. You want to have everything as close to one thing as possible. So that's probably one of the better ones. I track, when I first started tracking, I used Yahoo Sports just to do the money lines. Um, if you're going to start betting these games, before you even start betting the games, you got to get a book. You have to sit down for a month or a month and a half, and you have to, every single night, track your picks. See how you do. Start looking at averages. You're going to find different streaks. You're going to find certain teams seem to do a lot better. Just like in basketball, I like to stick to probably 5 or 6 specific teams for a month or so and watch all their games, DVR them, the whole deal, and watch those specific 6 or 5 teams and go off of that. I mean, there's 30 teams in basketball. You're not going to have time to be able to watch every single game of every single team. So the best thing you could do is pick 5 or 6 teams, watch who they're going against, and start from there. That would be a great suggestion. But definitely, you have to track your picks to start. Before you even start the idea of getting $20 a game, $100 a game, God forbid you get up to 5,000 a game, something like that. You have to have a system in place. But let's see what else we have. Sports Insight. I love Sports Insight. They have a great app. They tell you the percentages of bets for each team. They also have the injury list. They have the overseas sports books. Their lines are on there as well, and so that's a pretty useful app as well. I like that one. They also have a website. I like Bleacher Report. The mobile app and the website is very consistent. It's very good. You're able to set favorites for all different sports, all different teams, individual players. So every time that an update comes up on one of these injuries, or a guy punches his wife in the mouth, or something bad happens and he's going to be out for a week, it'll be right on there. So.
Yeah, I just want to bring Theo in here too because I'm guilty of the 5 hours searching random sites and wasting a lot of time. So
Hmm.
I'm just taking some notes here. Theo, did you have the
Yeah,
same issue
sure.
I did?
A little bit. I mean, well, I got into this from just betting on MMA really because I was into that, and
Hmm.
and like you said, I understood it, even though I understand NFL and all that. I really got into it from
Hmm.
that, and then went from there. And there's no point spread or anything in MMA, so it's a
Yeah.
little different. But anyway, I wanted to ask. You said one of those sites had the number of bets on each team, and
Hmm.
a lot of guys say, "Oh, the public is on this team, or the sharps are on this team, or there's a lot of money coming in on this side." Does
Hmm.
that play a role into your decision making, or you already have your system and that doesn't really affect it?
I take it into mind, but also the biggest thing to me is the book's got to get leveled either way. They didn't build those big casinos in Las Vegas off a bunch of losers. So they say this is Vegas' worst week they've ever had. Well, the next week, I can guarantee you there's going to be a lot of underdogs covering, just like they had in Week 17 in football. After the books get beaten for a week or two, you can guarantee yourself that it's going to straighten out again. Uh, you
Right.
know, it's very rare. I can't remember the last time I seen where they had 3 weeks even consistently, that the favorites, they all laid chalk and they all covered. That's unheard of, just about. Sooner or
Right.
later, the book's going to get their money back either way. So.
Okay. Well, last week in the NFL, I
Mhm.
read some reports, and I don't. It was a bad week for a
Mhm.
lot of the books because all the teasers covered. If it was a
Mhm.
teaser on the winner or the loser, it didn't
Mhm.
matter if they did a teaser on the winner or the loser. They all hit because they
Mhm.
were close games, and even some books said they're not going to have them next year. They're considering that. So you think that then that means this coming up weekend, all the teasers are going to lose? Because
Uh,
I mean, I don't know. There's still NFL, and I think that we're going into another question also about teasers. But you also had
mhm.
NFL on your Twitter, I noticed too.
Mhm. Yep.
And
Yep.
so I'll just form it like this. I see in NFL the teasers being useful because there are those key numbers like
Mhm.
3 and 7 and 42, and you want to get 42 and a half and so on. So,
Mhm.
but with NBA and or baseball or I don't or there's with NBA at least, are there any key numbers that you look at? I mean, you said you aren't really like a mathematician, but
Mhm.
you know what I mean. I mean, with NFL, everyone sees it.
Mhm.
10, 7, etc.
Yeah. It really does vary on each team. A lot of people are going to say 7 matters a lot. A lot of people are going to say 4 matters a lot. But each team has its own record each year against the average, against the spread. So you got to look individually at what that team is doing that year. Like Golden State this year is what, 24 and I think 12 against the spread, something like that this year. So I mean, that to hear that you're over 10 games over 500 against the spread, you're not going to hear that a lot in basketball. A lot of teams this year are what, 18 and 17. A lot of teams that are just one game better covering than they are not covering. So to me, I think it varies on each team. Uh, I don't. Once you start getting into eight 8 points, start laying chalk. If you're laying 8 points or more, you really got to individually analyze the team. How much better is this team than the next one? I mean, there's a lot of teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers. I feel like every time I take them, it doesn't matter if they're going against the 76ers. They never cover for me. For some reason, they just, like tonight, they're going against Brooklyn. Uh, the spread was 13. I didn't take the full game. I don't want any part of it. I want to get in and out as quickly as possible.
Okay,
It's
great.
so you do the first quarter and you do the half, and then you parlay it sometimes with 2 or 3 other teams, or maybe if you're feeling lucky, 4, and then you call it a day. But now that I've gotten into various things, I like doing the quarters. I like doing the halves. Unfortunately, the books are starting to catch up to Golden State. Golden State this year in the first quarter has been absolute pure gold. They've really started to catch up on that number. They're getting higher and higher for the game. I mean, last year Golden State was uh, probably 10 points. If you've seen a 10-point spread on a Golden State game, you'd say, "Wow, that's really high." Now this year they're up to 17 and a half in some cases. So unfortunately, the books definitely caught up on the off season on them. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're definitely in a league of their own right now.
Yeah.
And you're talking about doing some those bets that are either quarter based or half
hmm
based. Do you yourself do any of the live betting at all?
I do. I actually just got into it the last year, last 10 months or so. Um, and I got to say, it's a very valuable tool because if you're watching a first quarter and there's an above average team and they're just coming out sluggish that night, and if you're able to catch a decent number, say the game for the game they were giving 10 points, but on live action they're already down 11, and now it's only 4 for the game. I got to take a chance with that because before the game it was 10. You're taking the 6 points off of that. You're giving yourself a better chance, and the likelihood of them coming back with a run is a lot higher than them just being sluggish for the entire game. The exception to the rule was the Cleveland Cavaliers the other night, when they got absolutely smoked by Golden State. But that was a prime example of me watching the game the other night. 10 minutes into the game, I think they made about 4 threes, and they just looked on fire, unstoppable. They looked as if they came out to prove a point. So about, I'd say, 6 minutes into the quarter, I said, you know what? Live action right now, it's plus 105, and I'm getting a point. This is the time to strike. This is the iron is hot. You got to get on it. Sometimes it's the live action in the first quarter, and most times it's the live action at the end of the third, beginning of the fourth quarter, because they usually cut it off with 10 minutes or less in the game. So,
Yeah. I guess, I've been a stock options and Bitcoin trader now for almost 7 years. So it really plays on, the kind of momentum trader within me that I've noticed from the live betting, where you get situations where, either you get forward momentum of the team just being hot, shooting the lights out with threes or something like that, or like you say, a sluggish team that's kind of gotten behind, and they're going to at least put up a fight and try and get it back to a close game. So,
yep.
That's another point of where I end up having to watch the game, and you can kind of feel that momentum as you're playing it.
Yeah, well, once you start watching these games and you get a feel for the talent level on these teams, and you can see whether or not they really got the talent to be able to come back. Like this game here, they got Cleveland's up 51-39. My day is already over with this game. It's over. I already nailed the first quarter. I already nailed the half. It's over. I got nothing else. Now I'll go over to the Knicks and take a look at that, and who knows, maybe I'll catch something live over here that'll perk my interest, Okay. So I really love these quarters and halves. I think it's a beautiful thing. You can really use it to your advantage.
Yeah, I know Teos has been really, really hot with the live betting over the last 4 to 6 months. Do you do anything with like prop bets? How about prop bets? Let's talk about that a little bit.
I haven't really. I've tailed some of his field goals. Over or under 44 yards or 43 yards, stuff like that. The 1 week where he did the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it was. Yardage-wise, it was 302, I believe, for Big Ben. I mean, that was a given right there. He was going against a weaker team. We all expected him to at least throw for 320. So you can look at the matchups and just off the top of your head say, is this a soft number? Is this something I should jump on before it changes? Antonio Davis this year. I mean, some of them were over under 103 yards, and then he'd come out for 144 yards, and by the third quarter, you're already over. So yeah, props. You really got to find your niche. You got to find, like for me, the quarters and the halves and the live action is definitely my little niche. You're seeing a lot more underdogs cover this year in basketball compared to other years. To me, these teams that are favored, laying these chalk numbers between 7 and up, they're getting soft at the end of the game. They're getting lazy. They're not lazy, but they're tired. And you can't consistently expect even the best team like Golden State to continually cover 14 points, 15, 16. So a team like that, where they usually come out of the gate pretty hot, I'll ride the first quarter and a half, and then my night will be over, and then I'll just watch the rest of the game, and maybe something pops up live, and then you got an opportunity to strike 3 times in one game instead of striking 5 or 6 different games.
Oh, yeah, that's really, I like that with the quarters and the half. That's really interesting.
Yep.
I wanted to get back to bankroll, what you said was really important.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of guys, like you see on Twitter, okay, I'm going on this one unit, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
on this one half a unit,
Mm-hmm.
5 units. But really, I just wanted to ask, how do you size a unit? Are you doing it? Would you suggest like 1% of your bankroll, or just go all in, or I mean, there's all kinds of different ways to do it. And how do you decide how? I guess it's just a confidence level,
Mm-hmm.
for you personally. But how do you decide? Okay, on this live bet, I'm going 2 units, or on this first quarter bet that I'm placing, I'm going 5 units, or however. How do you
Mm-hmm.
do that? What's your method?
Well, say you got a bankroll of 5,000, right? Say you've saved your money, or you're already worked up to play, having 5,000 available to play. Say there's what is it, 9 games or something tonight, 9 or 10 games tonight. I'll probably be interested in 3 or 4 of them, if that. Uh, okay, so like Cleveland Cavaliers tonight, they got their teeth handed to them the other night. You know very well LeBron told them before the game tonight, listen, I don't know what the hell you were doing when we were going against Golden State, but you better come out and show me something tonight. So a game like that, if you got 5,000 in your bankroll, if you got the cojones and you can manage it and you're comfortable with it, for me, because I'm more of an aggressive bettor now than I was previously, I was very, wouldn't say nervous, but I was very skeptical. I would only play, say, $100 a game. But you know what? On a particular bet like that, take 1,000. I mean, it's the Cleveland Cavaliers. They got absolutely smacked the other night. They're going against a much weaker team like Brooklyn tonight. This is the opportunity where you push it a little bit. Not every night's going to have it. Not every week's going to have it. But you have to know when to accelerate the gas, and you got to know when to pump the brakes and say, you know what? I'm going to take this night off. I'll take 2 or 3 nights off a week. I don't care. I don't mind, as long as I find one minimum a game a week where I can make my money off of. So every week varies, every game varies, every matchup varies. But yeah, I would rather put more money in something that I feel very confident about than spreading myself thin and picking 5 or 6 different games for $100, and I'll just take the 500 and put it on the game I feel best about. That's my method, at least.
All right, cool. A lot of people talk about trap bets. They say, yeah, that was a trap bet, or
Mm-hmm.
this is a trap. I think it looks like a trap.
Mm.
Do you think that's a real thing, or is that just a myth, or just that you have to be aware, use your brain, and say, okay, that favorite is a false favorite, or that's and so on. What do you think about this thing, trap bets?
Well, this goes back to what I said earlier. You got to be able to watch the games. You got to be able to break them down. You got to be able to analyze them. Uh, Say they're on a back-to-back in basketball, and the starters played pretty much the entire game except for 3 or 4 minutes. They're going against a much weaker opponent tomorrow. They got to go into, say, Brooklyn again and face them. They're probably going to come out maybe either a little sluggish, a little tired, or they're just going to assume, the first quarter, we're not going to, well, we're going to push it right out of the gate. It's Brooklyn. So, yeah, there's trap games, letdown games. There's always a team that's top of the pedestal going against a weaker opponent that they're going to come out and it's just lackadaisical. And also you got to look on Twitter and stuff, see if these guys are going out for birthday parties. Did they stay out till 3 in the morning last night? Well, stuff like that. That you got to factor that stuff in.
Oh, that's really good. That's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
intelligence.
Yep.
Seeing did they just post? Are
Mm-hmm.
they going to be really hungover for the game because they were
Yeah.
out partying? Or yeah, I noticed that there were with the rivalries now because
Yeah.
we're all on Twitter and whatever that some of the guys talk trash on Twitter to each other. So
Yeah.
that's going to be a heated game.
Yeah.
And definitely noticed that.
Well, if you see two teams that are pretty evenly matched, and say the underdog is at home that night getting 6 or 7 points, and they're pretty close to each other. I mean, there's a team that's better than each other, but it's probably by like 3 points when you break down the numbers and you look points scored versus what they've allowed on the season, and they're within 3 or 4 points, and they're getting 6.5 or 7. You got to grab the 7. Those home underdogs, they will cover. So that's what you also got to look at as well.
All right. We're
Mm-hmm.
kind of winding down the interview, but I have a couple last closing questions. So, if you could go back and talk to a younger version of Tony before he has all this wisdom that you do now, what's like one piece of advice you give a new capper, a new sports bettor getting into betting for the first time?
Don't blow all your cash on one game. Do your research. Watch the games fully through. Don't just watch the first 3 quarters and then, go out with the guys, go out for drinks, go out with the girl, and then you come back and you say, how the hell did they lose it in the fourth quarter? You got to watch all the games. You got to do your research. It's money management. It's knowing when to strike and knowing when to take a night off and just watch it. There's no shame in just watching a couple of games. You don't have to always put your picks in before the game. That's why they have live action now. If you are hesitant on something, hold off on it. There's no reason to, if you're betting 5,000 a game or 2,000 a game, if you're not 100% convinced in that bet, you shouldn't put it in. We're all here to make money. We're not here for the high and the risk of it. Sure, it's great when you win, but when I lose, I'm a miserable son of a gun. I'm not happy. I don't get any satisfaction off the adrenaline rush of being close. At the end of the day, I want cash in my pocket.
Yeah, I think that's kind of similar to some of the traders listening know this is it's known as over trading. You're basically trading chop. There's no setup, and what you're talking about is you need to have a feel for it, and you need to feel confident in the bets that you're placing. So if you don't, I mean, it's perfectly okay not to bet that day or that game.
Absolutely, the best thing you could ever do is just pick 2 games. Pick 2 nights, 2 or 3 games, and just watch the rest of the week and see how these teams are playing. That's one of the best things you could do. That's what I've done now.
All right, and then one other question. I know we talked about parlays and teasers, and this kind of comes back to the book that you're using. Are you comfortable telling us what sites you use or anything like that?
I would recommend 5 Dimes. It's pretty good. Bet Online. They're pretty good as well. The only one I never used is Boulevard. I never used that one. That's the big one I never used before. But you got to shop around. You got to see what the best odds are. You got to make sure you're not giving too much juice. You got to make sure maybe you get a sign-up bonus. You can get a little something extra. Free money. If you could use free money, hey, I'm all for free money. So you got to really do your research. Take a look around. They got Pinnacle. Pinnacle's another book. So yeah, there's a couple of really good ones out there.
Yeah, I know many of us came, from Bitcoin, so we started on some Bitcoin-specific sites like Nitrogen Sports, which you may not be familiar with. But the awesome thing, me and Theo both use 5 dimes is they accept Bitcoin. So, I
Mhm.
mean, being in the U.S., I know you're in the U.S. It's
Yep.
sometimes a little bit. I don't know. Sometimes trying to move money in and out of these sites can get a little, uh, difficult at times. So it's
Yes.
awesome to have Bitcoin if you need to get
Mhm.
money in quick. One
Yep.
confirmed. So 10 minutes, I can have my money in 5 dimes.
Yeah. It goes back to what I said earlier. You got to do your research before you sign up for a site. They have all the information posted. Take a look and see what's the payment plans like. Every website is completely different on how they manage their bankroll when they're paying out. So it's definitely important to look.
So on that, I know I was kind of leading this question. Are there anything more advanced than like parlays and teasers that you get into, or do you just kind of shy away from some of those more complex betting, I don't know, strategies and stuff like that?
On basketball and football, I'll do my usual 3-team parlays, my 4-team teasers minimum. Then I'll work up to, if you hit a teaser even or a parlay, I mean, two completely separate. I like the points. I like getting points. I like covering my ass a little bit. I like, if you look at it like I did last week and I got all 4 legs of the teaser right in football, I would have lost, and I did lose on the parlay. Um, so yeah, I like to keep it simple. I mean, a lot of people like to get creative with different, whether it's prop bets. I guess the most adventurous and crazy I get is either a 5-team money parlay in basketball. $100 or $1,000 gets you about $6,400. Uh, hey, I like that. Um, Teasers in basketball, I usually do 4 teams max. I'll do teasers. Anything else, I really don't mess around with too much. I do some just single game, just laying the points. But parlays and teasers and stuff are definitely factored into my weekly roll.
Gotcha. And that really closes out the questions for me. Theo, do you have anything in closing?
No, I just want to thank you for coming on, and it was really good info, and thanks for your insight.
No problem. I appreciate you guys having me on tonight.
Yeah, it was great, Tony. Is there anything that we might not have covered that you think should be important that you wanted to discuss?
Uh, I just like I said earlier, you gotta before you decide to get involved into this, you gotta know who you're dealing with, what you're dealing with, and just manage your money. It's easy, and please, don't do it when you're drunk. It's fun, please. Whatever
Yeah.
you do, that you want to go back to what we were talking about earlier, what I could have said to a younger me. Don't do it after a couple of Jack and Cokes. That is not a good way to make a
Right.
living.
You
That
don't
will
want
not
to
work.
wake up. You don't want to wake up with a pocket full of bet slips that are all losers.
Oh, that's exactly how Vegas was built. I mean, you go out, the next thing you know, you say, "Oh my God, tomorrow!" It's Saturday early evening, and the games start on Sunday, and you're like, "Wait, let me get this pick in for 400 or 500. Hold on." And then you wake up, your jacket and your pants, you're pulling out slips. Where the hell did that $400 go? Oh, Jesus Christ. They took the Giants again? Laying points? Come on. Please, don't do it. Use your head. Use your noodle.
Thanks, Tony. And you
No
can
problem.
find Tony on Twitter at Picking NBA and MLB. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. Thanks again for coming on, Tony.
No problem. Thank you, guys. Have a good night tonight.